Hello, everyone. This is the Flow State podcast. I'm Stuart Turner, and I am delighted to be joined again by Ashton Tuckerman. Ashton, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
It is a pleasure to have you back. Today, as you know, we're going to be talking about a bit of a review of South by Southwest Sydney, which I unfortunately was too poor and busy to attend, but Ashton was at, who can give us the review. You, like me, can enjoy it vicariously through this conversation. And just have a bit of a chat about like what has happened to 2025 and what do we expect for 2026. So let's get into it. Ashton, give me, in your experiences of South by Southwest, have you got a one sentence hot take on your experience there? How was it in 10 seconds?
One sentence hot take.
Not to put you under too much pressure.
I would say AI is everywhere, but is that a good thing? That would be my takeaway. So that's probably the resounding theme. I guess to kind of zoom out a little bit, obviously South by Southwest and South by Southwest Sydney is about more than just marketing technology. We've got, the gaming stream, the innovation stream. We've got film, we've got music. But me being me, I did spend most of my time in the kind of marketing technology lane. So that
would
was
expect nothing less. Ashton.
That's kind
of dedicated, to the cause woman.
Yeah, to be honest, it took hours to just like do my schedule. There's so much, and even then I kind of booked myself out for like 10 hours in a day, and I was like, absolutely not, I'm gonna have to sacrifice some of these things as well. So the resounding theme was of the talks that I went to was definitely AI ?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear actually, because that was one of the things I was wondering about, and obviously great work on a very contextually relevant review of the event. But I was speaking to the team about this last week with the product, like in the product business, because obviously, AI is a part of that product, obviously, because it has to be. But we're like, we're all very conscious that we don't just want to bang on about AI for AI's sake, which feels like where the conversation's at the moment now. There's a lot of like, we've done an AI, and everyone's like, right, so that's good. But also, so what, I feel like the conversation's matured to a point where everyone's now a little bit concerned and also a bit like, what's the actual point? Like how, I suppose how like, programmatic was when that emerged, right? You're like, okay, great. Or any other digital technology, people are like, look at this. And then you're like, yep, I've seen it. It's there. It's everywhere. Great. However, when we prepped and spoke before this conversation, and I don't want to be too negative, which I am trying not to be this year, I felt, just to set the context for your review of your experiences there, when I heard that South by Southwest was just being sort of wholesale lifted out of the US and dropped into Australia, I wasn't super impressed with the line of reasoning there, because I feel like we could have homegrown something out of one of the festivals or, sort of environments that already exists here. So I'm kind of keen to hear, from you, like the stuff that you experienced this time. Did you feel like it was, was it actually Australian sort of centric? Did you see some stuff that was really valuable? And, did you feel like it was worth it, I guess? Like, what were your sort of highlights, and who did you see that you felt was like, inspiring, if you want to put it that way, or got your brain moving in different ways? Like, what were your highlights of the session?
Yeah, such a loaded question.
I know, sorry.
Yeah, kind of like dropping it into Sydney outside of Austin. An interesting decision. I think it makes sense as, Sydney kind of being this hub at this cross section of all of these different kind of streams, like South by Austin kind of is. It's hard not to be a little bit kind of have your cynical glasses on and be a little bit like, oh, is this just for commercial reasons?
Yeah.
It's I think the third iteration of South by Sydney now, and I'm pretty sure they get 100,000 people across the festival. So
yeah, that's cool,
right? the proof's in the numbers, right? People go, people enjoy going, and I definitely enjoyed going. I had wanted to go to South by in Austin a few years ago and didn't get that opportunity. So when I had the opportunity to go to South by Sydney this year, I was like, absolutely, it's happening. Yeah. And for a bit of context, the reason I was able to go was because our founder at 22, Sarah, was actually lucky enough to get a speaking position. So she ran a session on neuromarketing. It was called Brainwaves to Bottom Line. It was a packed house. It was awesome.
Awesome.
It was so good. And we just sort of figured, she's got this amazing speaking opportunity on the Thursday. Well, wouldn't it be great for both of us to go down and make a week of it and try to get as much of it as we could. So we both kind of shelled out for platinum tickets, and we were like, yeah, we're doing the whole thing. Like, we literally did weekend to weekend and tried to do as much as possible, which was exhausting.
I was going to say, like, it's hard. I don't go many places now, partly by choice, partly by, because I don't have any friends. But that, like, being on all the time at a massive event like that must have taken it out of you a bit. Like, how did you manage your schedule, Ashton? You strike me as a very hardcore planner. So, like, how did you make it work?
I am definitely an A-type personality. So I spent a lot of time going through the schedule and kind of making my short list. And then Sarah did the same. And then when we were at the airport before we flew down, we actually synced up our schedules and decided which sessions we would like to go to together and which sessions we were going to divide and conquer. This would be, I'm really interested in this, but this one would be valuable for the business. So a bit of a trade-off. But then, look, I went through a whole pen. This is the second pen, and I have
it's a good sign.
This many notes, so it's a lot. So I think being on and being switched on and thinking and writing, and I was capturing content obviously throughout it because you got to maximize the opportunity.
Essential, yeah.
Essential content comes first, and then the networking opportunities afterwards as well, especially for us as platinum pass holders and Sarah as a speaker as well. So something interesting is I'm pretty sure I hope I'm not going to get this wrong, but as far as like Myers-Briggs personalities, I'm an INFJ and I think Sarah's an ENFJ. So we're very similar, except I'm introverted and she's extroverted.
Yeah.
And so honestly, at the end of the day, sometimes I'd just be like, I just want to go back to our Airbnb and just like decompress. And she's like, we got to go.
No more.
We got to hit the networking events. And I'm so glad that we did. And that she kind of like, pulled me along, because it's that silly thing that people say, but it's so true. It's like, that is where a lot of the value comes, is from meeting people and people in, similar or even really different industries, but just like-minded. You're all there for the same reason. You're all there to kind of be exposed to new things, and you're all having a chat about, what you liked and what you didn't like, and actually kind of like, I guess, debating and kind of like pulling apart some of the topics, which is really cool. But the big takeaway when I was talking to people was, by sort of day 2, we all figured the best benefit or the most benefit comes from when you go to sessions that are completely outside your wheelhouse. So the natural instinct is, oh, I'm in marketing, I'm going to go to the marketing stuff. I'm going to go to the Google Ads stuff. I'm going to go to, the Spotify video podcast session, which actually was fantastic. So I'm very glad I went to that one.
Yeah, interesting.
But that's cool. That's where you want to lean in, right? You're just like, I'm going to go to the stuff that I do and that I like and that I know. But after a couple of sessions, you're like, it's kind of like being at work, like it's, or being back at uni. It's you're like,
great, I'm just paid to come to work, basically.
Yeah. It's like, you're sort of telling me what I already know. Like, maybe there's some new stuff in there, but it's like this is kind of what we do day in and day out. And so the greatest benefit really came from going to sessions where you're like, this sounds wild, or I have no idea about this topic, and I'm just going to go along because it sounds like something that's completely outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that way of challenging your thinking, I think, and this is one of the benefits of having an event like this, right? I guess is like, because you've got all those people in the same place. It's one of the things that I think I've whinged to you a bit about when you go to sort of more businessy conferences, right? It's like you just end up hearing a load of hot air from people who haven't really, they're not doers anymore. They tend to just be talkers, which is, I find probably as an epic talker myself is not super useful. Like, you just, like I say, like I can read all the theories and the strategy. Like, there's no shortage of those, but it's nice to be thrown into a different, sort of mindset, right? To sort of then come back to what you're doing, maybe with some fresh ideas, or even just approach it with a totally new way of thinking.
same room, same people kind of thing, you know, when you sort of network and when you go to things in your own city, like that is sometimes what you find. You just like, it's good. Like it's most of the time it's good, but you're like, it is literally the same people in the same room having the same conversations.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And like I think you know, that's a real struggle. Like especially I've been trying to think of ways around that recently because as you know, we're kind of, I guess, in startup mode on kind of both businesses, and we don't have huge budgets for like our own marketing. So our challenge is exactly that. It's like, well, how do you get out of those, safe, familiar conversations without having to pay a ton of money and go and meet some other people and do some other new stuff?
So I'm going to throw a concept at you. I'm literally gonna like read through my notes while we talk because that's the best way to do it. So this is very
really
relevant.
Glad before you dive into this, I'm really glad to see you hand wrote notes, Ashton. Like it's very good way of getting information down, I think.
Well, I've learned that from past conferences as well. Trying to take notes on your phone, no. The battery's running low, you're tempted, you got your Slack notifications popping off, like it's just not a vibe. Also, people sitting in the audience with their like full laptops as well. Like this is no, like we're not at uni.
I used to love that at conferences. You're like, are you actually working right now? Just sat.
And I keep seeing people just like on their emails. It's just like, why did you spend $1,000 to be here? Like it's a very strange decision.
Come on, guys. Come on. Be in the room.
So
be in the room.
That's my second tip. Because my first tip was like get out of your lane. My second tip, use a notebook. And I don't know, I'm definitely I think with my hands kind of person. I have a giant whiteboard that I cleaned off before this conversation, but I'm a big whiteboarder as well. Like my team,
love whiteboards.
I am the Always Sunny meme of the guy with like the plot chart on there. It's like I think with my hands. It's the Italian heritage, I promise. But
I like it. I like it.
I'm going to throw a concept at you. So my highlight talk was from Tyra Banks. For the benefit, we all know who Tyra Banks is, but let's pretend we don't. Tyra Banks, incredible international supermodel, America's Next Top Model, she just an absolute legend in her category. But more recently, she has moved to Sydney and opened an ice cream store. And the internet is abuzz. And they're like, Tyra is terrifying the people of Sydney. What's she doing? Why is she opening an ice cream store? It seems chaotic. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible talk. Her energy, first of all, and her entrepreneurial spirit, I was just captivated. I kept calling her my fellow Harvard Business School alumni. I was like, I might have only gone there for a semester, but I'm gonna make that connection.
Lean into it.
Lean in.
Yeah.
But so Tyra shared a concept which she called twisting, which is something I have done before, but I never had a name for it. So she said it's about being inspired by completely different industries. It's taking something from somewhere completely different to you and twisting it. So the example that she gave was, I think there was like a bit of a kind of, let's say, roundtable workshop, which anyone can do. This is a great idea. And they put all these random companies and industries on there. So like a, mining company, Disney, a technology company, like whatever. And people had to grab those different industries and kind of integrate that into a startup idea that they were doing. And so cool. somebody had Disney, and then they ended up coming up with their tagline really kind of based on this kind of idea of like the happiest place on earth and like this magic kind of feeling. And I was just like, that's a fantastic, that's kind of what I felt about South by Southwest, this concept of twisting. It's like, get outside your bubble and grab something and then twist it and see how it applies to you. So I love that. I thought that was like such a great kind of concept. And now it has a name. I'm really happy.
Yeah, that's really cool actually. Because like you say, it's probably something that people do maybe without even thinking about. But then when you actually start to actively think about doing it, I think you definitely get a bit more, you get a bit more from the exercise, right? Rather than just sort of the intuitive approach. So it's really interesting. So have you taken some stuff that you're going to twist and apply back to your day-to-day life at 22, Ashton? Have you
well, I feel like
any in the bag?
I feel like some of the talks I went to, besides some of the marketing related ones, like there was a great keynote from Neil Patel, our godfather of digital marketing. That was honestly Neil, and he gave us like the full deck of slides as well. I can send it to you afterwards.
Yeah,
it was just like, that was so tangible that I could bring it back to the team and be like, guys, this is what we have to do for next year. That was great.
I like it.
But it was the talks from, I'm going to say some of the keynotes are people completely outside my industry, like Paul Feig, the director of Bridesmaids. He did Freaks and Geeks, iconic show. He's done so many. He's done some episodes of The Office and Arrested Development. An incredible director, just an incredible guy. Yeah. But I took a lot away from what he said, which is so unexpected. It's like this director in Hollywood, like, how are you taking what he says and applying it to your digital marketing agency in Brisbane? But there were a couple of things that he said that I was like, this is absolutely a truth. And even if you know it, the reminder is really important. But he really advised against chasing, against chasing trends. And his thought was, by the time you've done it, it's no longer popular and it has a really short shelf life. So I really love that concept of not just being kind of a blind follower and just chasing trends. And he's talking about it in like a filmmaking capacity, but that's super hyper relevant to marketing and digital marketing and social media in particular. So that one was great. Yeah. And then he spoke about his role as a director being to first and foremost create a safe environment, create an environment of psychological safety so that the actors can show up and have fun and surprise him. And I loved that. That's cool. It's like, they were like, what is your main job? And it was Celia Piccola who was interviewing him. She said, what's your main job as a director? And that's what he said. It's to create an environment of psychological safety where people can show up and surprise me. I was like, I love that. That's cool. That's what I want to do as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that, actually, because I think obviously you hear like a lot of the the stereotypical sort of Hollywood director is the egotistical sort of shouty maniac, right? Which obviously is not true, because like no one would ever work with them, right? But like, it's just, I feel like a lot of people probably have that in their minds. It's like, that's what the movies is like, and as I'm sure you well know, Ashton, like, acting's like one of those industries where you like, I would imagine most people who are in it are constantly paranoid about whether anything's going to turn out well or not, because you just have, obviously we only see the finished products, but you imagine the making of something like, even like Bridesmaids, you'd be like, which is a great film, by the way, if you haven't seen it, but so much of that you'd be like, oh my god, this could go so wrong if it just, imagine if it had been a flop and you're filming one of those scenes and it's just like, I don't know. I've got a lot of respect for people in like the comedy sort of sector, I guess, of anything, because it's just such a like high risk like way to put yourself out there, because it's so subjective, and you're often on a knife edge between something's hilarious or it's just like super offensive, and lands completely flat, and you're like, oh, okay, great. Yeah.
And Bridesmaids was an interesting example, because so Paul Feig spoke about how most people were like, this is a bad idea, like a female-led cast, like female comedian,
women leading a film. Are you crazy? Women aren't funny, are they?
No, only as like supporting characters, obviously. But he said he met so much resistance, and there were so many people being like, this is a risk, like, maybe rethink this, maybe don't do this. But it's become such an iconic film, and I mean, it was successful in its own right as well. But just as a comedy film, it's not like people look at it and go, oh, that's a woman's film. Like, I
loved it. I even showed it to like Theo, my son, who's 10, loves it as well. I don't think he like super gets all the humor, like, but
it's very funny.
Yeah, when we first watched it, I was like, there's some conversations I don't want to have that might sort of occur after making him watch this. But like, it's surprising to hear that was deemed to be such a risk, though.
I know, it's hard to imagine, but I think that's probably a pretty common story with a lot of things that sort of broke through, right? I'm sure there's a lot of resistors out there who are like, I'm not sure about this, especially when things haven't really been done before. It's like, of course, everyone's going to be like, not sure, it hasn't been done. It's like, maybe that's the reason that you should do it. So, no, I actually took so much away from Paul Feig's talk. And I think I wrote something else down here that said, all bosses do is collect talent. So, you know, they were talking about how the people that he's worked with seem to come back and work for him again and again. And yeah, I honestly feel that for myself as well. And just, you know, I've over the, you know, decade or so, it's like I've amassed this amazing network of connections in Brisbane, people who've worked for me or people who I've worked with or people who I've worked for. And I'm constantly like, oh, who in my network, who in that pool might be right for something, for a role that I've got coming up. Like I still think about that. That's the first place that my brain goes when we're hiring somebody new. So that was a really cool parallel as well. I'm just like, oh yeah, we kind of do the same thing in a way, which is so surreal.
Do you know what? Interestingly, we've been having a very parallel conversation because we've been redoing all the like flow state positioning and stuff. Because there's a few new people like in the team now, and one of my colleagues has been kind of just working through all this. But we arrived at very similar conclusions about sort of, you know, what it's like when you start getting into your own brand and just being a bit like, oh my god, this is obviously essential but quite painful to go through when you're trying to work out exactly what it is that you're here to do. But the two of the key things that came out of like all of our conversations over the past month are very similar, which were like, as you were saying about AI being everywhere, you know, and the sort of obsession with, you know, the details and the tools. We were like, look, it's never been easier to go like super fast, you know, to Paul's point about trend chasing, which means that really it should be essential that you are in fact slowing down a bit more now and thinking through the whys and wherefores with a lot more care instead of just rushing to execute stuff because, you know, just because you can. And the other thing was exactly what you just said. We were like, I feel like personally I'm having a bit of a, you know, sort of Luddite swing away from technology mentally at the moment. And maybe it's just because I've been working on the internet for so long, but it does just feel a bit like, you know, like we were saying at the very start, there's a lot of like technology for technology's sake, a lot of like sort of big tech, you know, agendas being pushed down on everyone, a lot of like rampant commercialization of stuff, and all that sort of feels like the actual human part's getting quite squeezed out of like digital work, which is you know, a bit depressing. And I'm coming around to judging some awards again this year, like the APAC Search Awards and then some other digital ones next year. And last year there was a fair bit of AI in there as well, but loads of the entries that were super poor in the previous 2 years were like, oh, Google told us to do PMAX, so that's our
we did it
entry.
And I made a lot of money. You're like, yeah.
That was like, are you fucking serious? Like, you think that's award-winning work? Like, you've paid to enter an award and you're putting forward your best work, and it's something that Google just told you to do because they've released a product that makes them more money. Like, that is
PMAX.
So, okay, let's not get into that. Let's not
talk about PMAX. That's I want to pick up on that tangent a little bit. So from the very first talk I went to, I loved. So it was from a gentleman called Alex Myers, and he runs Manifest Agency over in London. I'm now obsessed with him and Manifest and everything they do. The title of the talk was called Boring Can'ts, the Rules of Comms We All Need to Break. And there was a line in there that said, Alex spoke about created with AI is fine, but created by AI is boring. So I think that's kind of the line where you're just like, yes, like a lot of things, like when, you know, Facebook allowed you to start advertising, and like when we, you know, got the iPhone, it's like, tools are enablement, but they don't, you know, there's a line between allowing them to do it for you. Like you said, it's like, oh, well, Google suggested this generative copy, so we did this, and they suggested this placement, and it made these auto optimizations. And it's like, so here is the work. It's like, yeah, but you didn't actually do anything. You've just hit accept on all the recommendations.
And now you got a little green tick saying, wow, you're doing so well. Just keep doing that.
So I thought that was really great.
That's
where
interesting.
It was like, created with AI is fine, but by AI is boring.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're at, you know, coming back around to South by Southwest and the more creative sides of the festival. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion about, you know, what is AI replacing at the moment, and like it's the balance we're trying to strike with everyone we work with, right? Where you're like yes, you can do things super easily and quickly, but you can tell. I think you can tell if people are putting the effort in or not. And that's where I think, it comes back to that whole, don't forget that there's people on the other end of all the computers and, ads and whatever that you're running, right? Like, you still need to appeal to them. You don't actually need any of these tools to do that, because
Yeah.
everybody was doing it just fine before the internet
Yeah.
happened, and probably will be doing it just fine when the internet implodes at some point and turns into something else.
Yeah, which that's quite an interesting topic around, like, you are creating the content for a person, but there is a conversation there around when we talk about search. It's like, are you creating content for the bots, for the crawlers? So,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think it reminds me of the early days of SEO, where
Yeah.
well, back in my day, when we did a lot of like keyword stuffing, right? It's like, that was
Yeah.
the thing. It was just like, sick, here's 50 keywords, put them in a page. And that was
Totally.
it.
White
And it
text on
worked.
white background in the footer. No worries.
Done. And look, for a period of time, like, it worked. Like, you're like, haha, robots were smarter than you. But then it doesn't work. And I think that's probably the danger, where you're just like, oh, we're just going to create some AI slop because the, GEO, generative engine optimization, or whatever you want to call it these days. I feel like we've landed on GEO because that's what GEO wants to see. It's like, that'll probably only last you, maybe 6 months if you're lucky, before again the platforms and the providers get smart enough to be like, no, don't just, please don't write for robots, basically. It's like, user, and that's what Google always preaches, right? It's like, write for humans, engagement, the EEAT model. It's like, we want engagement, we want authenticity, like, please actually do this and we will reward you. So I think that's the trap that people probably fall into. It's like, oh, it's so easy, like, just do it for the bots. And you're like, that has a short shelf life as well. You might get some short-term wins, but that is not a sustainable strategy at all.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you, and I think as a fellow, sort of, I don't know what you call it, alumni of the old school search industry. I think I've seen, you see these trends come and go all the time, right? Like, there's, back in the day when everyone was obsessing over whatever the next Google update was going to be, which I assume people still do who are in the industry. Like, that stuff is great. That helps you stay at the forefront, sort of tactically. But search behavior broadly is not really changing, because that is human behavior. It's like, I want to find something out. How do I find it out? And yes, Google sort of taught you to do it in a certain way, but it doesn't really significantly change, because the way that we discover stuff doesn't, materially change dramatically. So, I've seen a lot of interesting discussion around that, and the whole, sort of conversational shift allegedly to AI taking all this search, which I don't actually think is happening to the degree that people think it is. And read an interesting post by Andrew Hatfield, who's one of the guys who's involved in one of the meetups, like the revenue, I think they call it, what they call now, the Revenue Alliance, I think they're called now. He was saying that in a post he put out, I think it was a couple of days ago, he said Google indexed the web, but OpenAI is annexing it, which I thought was an interesting way of characterizing things, because he was sort of suggesting that, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Google have done the basic work. They've got search, they've got Chrome, they've got analytics, they've got like a million different environments that they can monetize. But now that's all kind of getting broken up and stolen, ironically, in exactly the same way that they did it, by other people just crawling all their stuff. So it's an interesting one. And he sort of posited at the end of that they were coming for kind of cognition, basically, instead of just looking at behaviors, which I don't entirely agree with, but I think I get where he's coming from.
It's super interesting. Like, I mean, I think for both you and I, it's like, it's fascinating, right? And this is why we're kind of in the field that we're in, because it's like, it's interesting and it's ever changing, and it's not ever going to not be like that. I say that to uni students that I talk to, or anytime I guest lecture, I'm like, this is the best industry to be in if you hate being bored, because it'll change, like, on a whim. Like, one morning you wake up and the AWS servers don't work. Like, things are constantly like,
stuff's not refreshing.
Canvas down. Like, it's even when things are broken or when things are changing, it's just like, it's interesting, and it makes you think. And I think that's what I like about it. And I also like about going to events like South by Southwest Sydney, or like anything else, like Something Digital in Brisbane, or like the Content Summit, also in Brisbane. We're a bit spoiled up here, but I just like
it's my
going
next
to these
destination for events, I think.
Oh yeah. I just like going to these events and just like going, yeah. And so that was, the theme of South by Southwest Sydney was the future belongs to the curious. Like that's, and I love that. And I think that was actually their theme last year as well. But curiosity is kind of everything. So I think curiosity is like the antidote to the AI of it all, or the antidote to AI slop. It's like, if you can be curious and be like, what if, or what else, or why, or how, that's human nature. So that was probably a resounding theme as well throughout a lot of talks. Even if it was like, we welcome our new AI overlords, it was still be curious, basically. Be curious and be creative. And, you still have to train the machines, and you still have to, if you want them to be creative, then you have to show them how to be creative. And if you want the machines to be curious, then you have to be curious. So I think I came away very encouraged in the knowledge that, like, good strategy is still your best moat. It's still your best kind of method of defense. Having that moat of strategy around you, strategy that is developed by your experience and your brains, and sometimes your gut feel as well, not just like, well, what's everyone else doing, or what's economically, what are we seeing? But it's like a strategy that borrows from absolutely everything. And this is a very long bow to draw here, but I think that the unemployment rate recently like skyrocketed, and economists are baffled, and they're like, oh, we did not expect this. We expected it to stay the same. So like, we're living in a world where even the economists are like, we don't know, like, we're as surprised as you are. So I think relying on past behavior or past trends being an indicator of future behavior and future trends is quite dangerous. That can be a starting point, but then be curious, be creative, kind of go, okay, let's say that's our benchmark. What if unemployment rises? What if it decreases? What if this? What if that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there's two things I read recently that totally support that line of thinking, that were one of them was an article if you want to read it, it was an interview, an article about the interview from an ex-Google, was he ex-Google? Maybe still at Google, which I'll dig out from a previous podcast, that basically the short version of which stated that, in order to, sort of continue to survive, people need to relearn how to think critically. And I was like, that whole conversation is exactly indicative of the sort of, somewhat reductive cul-de-sac that we're in at the moment, where people are like, oh, going back to what we were saying about rampant commercialization, uni's quality of teaching's degraded at higher education level because everyone's been told, as much as I love him, by people like Stephen Bartlett, who are just constantly shitting on like higher education because, he was a dropout who's done well, which is like awesome. I have a lot of respect for everything he's done, but, he's sort of, in my opinion, stepping slightly outside of his sphere of experience there by saying like, oh, you don't need uni, just go to work. And you're like, the point of going to uni is not to learn to work, like it's to learn other stuff, right?
Yeah, it's to learn to think, like you say, critical thinking. I think critical thinking is, along with curiosity, which they're kind of the same thing. It's like, that is the most important thing. It's just like, think about things. And if you don't want to, if you just want AI to do the thinking for you, I'd have to say, why? Isn't that really boring? Like, what are you going to do
exactly
then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like, what are you going to do? Like, nothing. You're going to sit around like the fat guys from
just vegetate. Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be it. Just having different coloured jumpsuits stuck on you every day. It sounds horrible.
It's one of those funny things. Like, so a lot of the conversation, sort of broadly at South by, also kind of went back to this rate of change, right? And yes, I think it was so. The first keynote I went to was from Mo Gadat, also, our absolute icon of the industry. And he was talking about the kind of rate of change. So I think 5.7 months, like the doubling power of AI, right? And that it's kind of getting faster and better and smarter. And he said, in 6 months' time, he'll be able to borrow 400 IQ points from AI to sort of enable him to do these things, which I'm like, that's amazing. That's fantastic. But then the skeptic in me goes, well, we've had sort of self-driving cars. We've had the technology for about 15 years. How many self-driving cars are around here? So
yeah, exactly.
I just feel like as humanity, yes, we're always changing and we're always developing. That's just the nature of it. But how much does our day-to-day life really change? That's kind of where I come back to.
Yeah, and I think that's where everyone gets very excited and sort of runs off down the rabbit hole, right? Of like, as we've spoken about extensively this year, it's like, yes, AI is very exciting in some respects. Like you can instantly do a lot of boring jobs, but like I found, I use it, or I was using it a lot at the start, but now I'm like, I don't, it's beyond like the functional speed stuff up or do it better, or like you were saying, do it a bit faster. I'm not seeing huge material benefits across the stuff we're doing. It's all the things you would have expected. They're fine. That's great. But as you were saying earlier, I think the danger with being like, oh, look, I can borrow brain power is like, can you? Because where's the training data come from for a lot of these models? A lot of it's just like the garbage that's on the internet, and the garbage that's on the internet has been largely fueled by the advertising industry for the past 15
I think
years.
we've all experienced AI or the platforms themselves getting it wrong. And it happened to me this week. I posted on LinkedIn. I was like, I asked Google how many Mondays there are between now and December, and the AI summary had 3 incorrect pieces of information. It said 7 and then it said 8, but there was actually 9. So I was like, wow, you've got 3 errors. That's pretty basic, right?
But, the calendar, not a super challenging, sort of problem to throw at an AI tool, right?
No. So I think we all want to see AI used for good, and we want to see it cure cancer, and we want to see it, be able to kind of survey our fire zones and help us make sort of accurate predictions or things like that. Like that's kind of what we want to see. And I'm hoping that when we talk about this kind of rate of change and the impact, my hope is that that is the direction it goes in, and not look at kind of these AI generated film stars who are taking jobs from other film stars, and we've kind of stripped the humanity out of it, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's, the crux of the issue for me is exactly that. It's like you coming back to a sort of, somewhat navel gazing-ish sort of philosophical perspective on it. You just have to be like what do we as a species want to be doing in the next, sort of 100 years, for example? Like you've got, maniacs like Elon Musk who are like, let's get to Mars and be able to strip mine asteroids and stuff. And you're like, look, love him or hate him, that is actually quite an exciting goal to have. And like, that is something that would genuinely push the species forward. And, Peter Thiel, I listened to a quite mad interview with him a few weeks ago where, like, again, not a huge fan of the guy, but he was saying that one of his theories that he's been putting around for ages is that we've hit a point of sort of stagnation as a first world, sort of species, where we're not inventing things at the rate that we were even in the Industrial Revolution, right? The rate of actually inventing new technology and new stuff was super high then, whereas now it isn't, and there's much less actual genuinely new, sort of needle moving stuff happening, because everyone's just fiddling around with stuff like, like the internet and like AI in its current form. And he's like, look, we're in danger of just, sort of stagnating basically, which I don't like most of what he says, but I did agree with that.
That's very true. Very true.
We're like fiddling around being like,
we're in the optimization age. Everything's just like, let's just like make these sort of 1%ers. But like when was the last moon landing kind of thing? And that's
the exact example he gives, right?
These moments where you're like, the reason that some of these moments are so impactful is like we're literally pushing the boundaries of what we can do as a species, which is really cool. And I guess in some ways, like maybe we are doing that with AI, but it feels really intangible because it's like, well, is it at our hands, or are we just kind of, is it ones and zeros and we're just letting the kind of machines sort of sort themselves out?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and like it's the whole to your point. It's like what's the impact? Like because the more in direct contradiction of what I said at the start of this conversation. Like if you look at what we've actually achieved, we're like we've turned most oceans into giant toilets. We're like destroying the seabed with horrible like trawler fishing. There's like garbage everywhere across the third world that we recycle out to them and then they burn. Like, you know, we're not really sort of kicking a lot of sustainability goals at the moment, and unfortunately all the technology of like evolution just contributes to all these problems that we claim we're trying to solve. Like we need more data centers and we need more energy and we have to chop down more forests or put more stuff in the sea to make that happen. So the two don't seem to go super hand in hand for me, which again, I don't know if you saw a story actually related to this last week about a big piece of space debris that someone found in WA that just like
No, I didn't.
it was on fire when it like obviously I'll try and find the story. So someone found it near it was near a massive mine somewhere. Classic. But yeah, this big piece of I think like a bit of a booster assembly or something they decided it was just had fallen out of the sky, was still on fire, and then I'll send you the video after this. And then people were like, obviously the internet was ablaze with being like, oh my god, it's like alien technology, but it's just a bit of a rocket or something. But you know, my immediate thought was like, great, so we've now shot so much stuff up into the lower and upper atmosphere that it's literally falling back down on us now, which is a perfect analogy for our general attitude to like everything to do with planetary sustainability. But yeah, I was just like, you know, like is that what we want to be doing? You know, so, again, Elon Musk has been shooting Starlink satellites up with gay abandon for the past like 5 years or whatever. You know, there's tons of them up there, which actually is getting to like the Wall-E situation of just a huge floating sphere of filth around the planet, which can't be good.
No.
Anyway, sorry, that's the end of that rant about that.
So it's it gets a little bit. That's right. When you start to extrapolate it, you're like, oh, okay, things are a little bit terrifying, but to I guess kind of like maybe round us out or to lift the mood a little bit, I will
please do.
share,
Sorry, stop being so.
I'm gonna share something from Brennan Lee Mulligan. So people might know him for a variety of reasons. He is a Dungeons and Dragons kind of I'm not in this world, so people don't come for me. But I know he's a dungeon master, and it's like he's a big deal. He's amazing. I do see him on Dropout on TikTok. I have no right to be on TikTok at my age, but yes, I watch all of the comedy
do what you
shows.
like, Ashton.
That's right. I'll do me, they do you. But Brennan's talk was joyous and it was uplifting for a guy who kind of dedicates his life to the creative pursuits. And he talked a lot around play as the definition of success. And I love that. And it spoke to humanity and like, you know, our innate sort of spirit of kind of just wanting to do that. But he had a quote which was around unplugging from the idea of success coming from a marketplace or a hashtag or a chart. Success is just what makes you happy. So I really love that around, you know, I think everyone in the hustle and grind culture, it's like, oh, if I do this, it'll make me happy. It's like sometimes just little things make you happy. Sometimes like, you know, a good glass of wine or a good movie or play, having fun in your work and kind of being around good people, that makes you happy. So I think that was a nice reminder. And he also said we become more of who we are the more we learn. So that's a lovely concept. And I think that's what encourages me to keep going to events like South by Sydney, even people, you know, even when the reality is like, it's, you know, it's a bit commercial, it's a borrowed concept, you know, maybe it's a bit samey, maybe it's not, but I just love that idea. We become more of who we are the more we learn. So that's always going to keep moving me forward and going to things like this.
I think that is a much more positive and delightful ending note, Ashton. So yes, thanks for that. I totally agree. Like, I think if you take anything away from this conversation, it's probably that and not the preceding complaints that I was making about life in general. But yeah, look, I'm really glad to hear that you found some interesting stuff there, and that, you know, like that it was worthwhile. Because I think, you know, my worry is always like you were saying, commit a lot of time to these events. You know, it's a big chunk out of your sort of work life. So it's awesome to hear that it was worthwhile, and there was some cool stuff there.
A week out of the office for both Sarah and myself as the founder and the GM, that's a big commitment. So yeah,
was everything on fire when you got back, Ashton? Were
absolutely not.
Like cups in the corner from secret parties? You know, is anything untoward happening while you were away?
No. I've hired my entire team, and I had complete faith. I was like, I know my team. When I left, I said, you're all in charge. So no, I came back I left in calmness and came back to calmness. So that's exactly what you want. It's a perfect test.
Exactly. Yeah. You're like everything's great. Don't worry. Love it. Awesome. Well, look, thanks very much for coming on again, Ashton, and giving me your review. I like it. To officially a final round off, what is on the cards for you for the remaining working months of 2025, and what are you excited about 26 when we get back?
Goodness me. All right. So we've got about 2 months to go. This is the final sprint. What is on the agenda for me? A lot of work on our own brand at 22. This is the time of year where we actually develop our ebook, which is our sixth edition this year, which is trends to look out for 2026. So good foreshadowing there. The content is done. It's in design. We're kind of ready to launch in the next couple of weeks, which is exciting. So kind of a lot of work on ourselves, and especially through, I think, December and January, which is where, you know, sometimes client work can get a little bit quieter, or, you know, generally things kind of start to the tap turns off a tiny bit, and that's a great time to work on your own brand. So I think that that's probably the same case for a lot of people. So big things coming in 2026, including, you know, for us, very keen to launch our podcast as well, which has been on my agenda, and I really want to make it happen. But probably from the client side, experimenting with a lot of platforms that we're not really leaning into at the moment, breaking up a little bit with the Google and Meta mafia. So I'm really keen to kind of take some of the eggs out of the baskets, and we've been dabbling in a few different platforms that you know, might be smaller but more engaged. You know, we've got Reddit, Spotify, Pinterest. Back on Snapchat, you know, who forgot about Snapchat? The engagement rates are great. So that's right. So just really keen to kind of diversify away from, you know, the easy and the obvious, like, oh, we'll just give more money to these platforms because that's what everyone's doing. So in the words of Tyra Banks, different is better than better. So that was a big one. It's like, what's better than better? Being different.
Totally. Yeah. No, I agree. And on that advice-filled bombshell, I think that's an appropriate point to wrap, Ashton. So thank you once again. Always a pleasure to chat, and hopefully I'll make it up your way before the end of the year if I can sneak away from, you know, my room down here.
Out of the cave and into the sunshine.
Yeah, I'm a bit scared of the outside now. I don't like to go. I like to look at it through the windows and not.
Too much space junk out there.
Exactly, it could fall on me tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen. Just keep your eyes on the sky. All right, that's my piece of advice for the rest of this year.
Is out there.
Awesome. Well, you have a wonderful day, Ashton. I'll chat to you again soon. And I still don't have a good ending. That's the end. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Stu.